Yo, what's up guys? It's time for Temple of Chaos Fire. I did actually get a crazy high rank. It's in the thumbnail, you already seen it. Rocking 14 mil. 14 mil is higher than the rank 1 in the first rotation that was happening in Europe. Europe is a little bit less tryhard because people with the right LDs are not doing this that much. Team that you see are the units that you see here on the left. From top to bottom is also the turn order. I have the numbers of the speeds in there as well. And I'll showcase all of the runes afterwards. If you might ask, what are these numbers? The numbers is what in order I put the runes to. So I did do the optimizing. First set went to the Dragon. Second set went to the Jean. I went for Jean in the end. I did not try out the Talia. Third set to Gojo and so forth. These were all at the end. So in this case, it was Lucas and then Mina. I did not write F for fight runes, but I'll showcase the runes at the end. I'll just showcase what this team does do. I'm actually using Mina this time around, and I was pretty impressed by Mina damage. She was doing a really good, substantial amount of damage. Like, I would say that she's pretty much on par with a Momo, especially because the element is right, of course. But she was rocking, like, on a Death Break attack buff. She was rocking, like, triple ADKs on the S2. That's some real good damage right there. I was trying out this Galleon team, was a suggestion by Linus, one of my longtime viewers. Definitely appreciate it for that. He's also most of the time pretty high in this content as well. And yeah, this team is revolving around Galleon being a shithead and your Helia being a shithead for death breaking. But in most cases, like if it works out well, you can get pretty substantial teams on this. Replacements that you could make is, of course, well, I have a Deborah in there. Deborah could be replaced by another damage dealer. Then you could be thinking about Kyle. But I was thinking Kyle in the first place. I used Kyle in the previous rotation on water. But actually a big issue with Kyle is that Kyle will waste turns. Because Kyle will take an S1, don't kill, take an S2, and then does kill. Which also does remove the attack buff, and therefore it's not that great. Of course, best in slot in this option is going to be adding in things like Lucifer and Jack and those kind of things. That is definitely the best way to actually rune this up, or like the best units you could actually throw at this, and that would give you a lot of results right there. But as you see, double 80k, like 85k on the Mina. Mina's doing good damage. Like that's pretty much even more damage than this. It is very close to the damage of the Lucas. Lucas is doing a little bit more. A thing that's very important with this is you want to be above the tick with the Mina and the Lucas. That is the 179 tick. So that is like tick 6, tick 7. I don't even know which number it is. But you want to be above 179 combat speed. And your Deborah wants to be as slow as possible. If you do have that, your Deborah's not going to move as much and your tune orders will be kind of fine. As you do see, I did miss a few Galleon hits over there. Most of the time, an interesting thing that you always want to do is you want to pair up the Helia S3 with the Lucas S2. Because of that, Lucas will do an insane amount of hits on his S2, and therefore he will stack an insane amount of shield, and because of him stacking more shield, he will also deal more damage. So we're looking at 1 mil already with 15 turns left, which is definitely not bad numbers right there. This can range, I would say 1.5 to 1.8-ish mil is what you should be looking at. Galleon, once again, being a shithead. So Galleon was a shithead twice. If Galleon wasn't a shithead those 2 times, I would have probably gotten like 200k-ish more or something along those lines. Deborah, most of the time you want to be saving your S2 for the moment that you do actually tend to miss a death break here or there. Also did miss the branding from the Galleon over there. So Galleon technically already been a shithead 3 times right there. But this S2 into that S2 is like 350k, which is absolutely insane. But then again, if there was a branding for the Mina with an attack buff, I think Mina would do pretty much legit same damage. So in this case, I just make it clear, and I think I end up at like 17.6 or like 1766 or something along those lines. Yep, I could have done, if Galleon wasn't the shit at those 3 times, I would have probably done about like 1.8.5 to 1.9. In this team, I have seen people use Seek over Hwahi, but I do showcase all the way at the end how much damage Hwahi does actually take in this. I really do like Hwahi. Hwahi, especially for the S3, it does do so much damage because it's the thing that normally goes at random, but now it's just all fully focused on one target. And that's really nice. For the Sabrina and the Shaina, I used a fight plus a damage set. So one is fight focus, or no, fight fatal. The other one is fight with rage. I have seen the team of apps as well, which is a pretty strong team too, where you go for your Shaina, making it like plus 210 or plus 220 speed, and then you use Shaina as single death breaker, and then you go for Shaina moving, two other units moving, Shaina moving, two other units moving, Shaina moving, two other units moving. That style does kind of work as well. Then in that case, you probably want to put the Mina in this team over the Sabrina. And then you could put a Seek over the Hwahi. But the main thing is then if you have that working, then I would probably say Mina would go to team 2. And then you would go for Sabrina being gone and then Shaina solo Deathbreak. But then again, there is some damage from the Shaina still. It's not that much. Like Shaina's doing about, I would say 50 to 55-ish K on an S1. Whereas Sabrina's probably doing like, I would say she's hitting like 30-ish K, or like, yeah, 30 Ks on death breaks. So it's not the most amount of damage that these twin angels do bring out themselves, especially if the death break comes in late. But in the end, like this is still like 3 times 27. So it kind of adds up. It's a little bit chip damage in there. I would still recommend to go them for some damage set, because if you don't do any damage set, then it's just a little bit more tricky to get like the good rotation in where you always clear in 4 turns is what I would say. So currently we're already rocking a good bit of damage. And yeah, this is just the main team that I think is very strong. If you don't have a Gojo, then you probably have to take the Lucas from team 1 to this team. And then you have to use something else in the team 1. I have some people actually go for Manananam because of the crit lead. In this case, I was actually checking. It's like, okay, I start off the wave with nothing. Can I just save my S2 and then clear it? Which you can if you have the S2 of the Gojo available. But yeah, as mentioned, if you don't have Gojo, then it's probably something along the lines of bringing the Lucas to Team 2, finding a replacement for Lucas in Team 1, and then you would be probably looking something along the lines of like a Fami, but she's kind of ass. I'm not sure if there's any water unit that could provide decent damage every turn. Liam or something like that is definitely not really going to be worth it. Also, I don't think... Oh, wait, Liam has AoE lead on everything. It doesn't go to dungeon, right? Or was it dungeon? I don't even remember. But no, it should be... it's 33, so it's like the lead on everything. But yeah, there's a few options. Mainly like Fami is one of those options. And otherwise, you got to go towards like more random LDs or whatnot. What maybe could be a thing. I'm also not sure if you really have to use a lead. That you cannot just go for. It's like, okay, I just use like a Shaolin. Also in this case, I was thinking like, okay, I have 2 turns left. And this is a pretty important thing to mention. I have 2 turns left. The boss is sitting at half of its bar. If I were to send S2 right now, I would definitely kill it. Then the Gojo moves and then nothing happens. If I kill right now, it starts off without a death break. That is definitely not that bad. But if you want to go for a safe run, this is where you should quit out. And the thing no longer works where you quit out and then you hit it and then you quit out mid-hit. The thing is, especially since I also did not have the S2. With the S2, I could maybe gamble to get a Gojo death break in right there. But I went out. And the main reason that I went out is what you will see in the next hits starting off with the Draken Warrior team. This case, I start off with 2 bars and very low HP and a death break. This will make it super easy for my Draken Warrior to get in his rotation in his first hit. Because if I had a full HP bar and 0 bar or 1 bar at the enemy, issue is I use 1 turn to get the attack buff to the Draken Warrior, 1 hit for the Draken Warrior to hopefully go for a death break. But the thing is, he's not been recovered just much because he starts dealing a lot of damage when he is recovered. Issue is, on his very first hit, he's not very hard recovered. So you want to start off with an S2. But when can you start off with an S2? If there is already a death break. So that is exactly what I do over here. You go for this skill, you recover a little bit, and then you go for a hit like that. And you see, this is just doing like 60-ish K. If I did S1, I was doing probably like 30K. But now the real damage comes in. So you always want to start off this rotation on a death break. It's just so much more beneficial. And then from here, you start actually rocking in the real damage where you see it's like, okay, skill 1 is flying for like 80k, skill 2 is flying for like 130-ish k. I don't have the Deborah in there. I did make the video about it before of what's the high risk, low risk, and mid risk on all of this. You can definitely check that out. I will link it in the description for if you want to optimize your Draken Warrior team. But the idea is still the same. If you go for a Miriam plus Mirene, it is a mid-risk, mid-reward. If you go for a Mirene plus a Deborah, it's a high-risk, high-reward, but it will definitely feel a lot more. If you want to go for a low-risk, lower reward kind of style, you can go for a Miriam plus a, I think it's a Celia or a Cecilia or anything like that. Her Wind Sister. That's just the main thing. Because her Wind Sister allows anything that... I think it's anything that crits. Or no, wait, anything that hits with an attack buff will actually give you a potential for a death break. So that just adds in a lot more death breaks. Also, if you do not have a Mirene, just simply add in that unit right there, which is the Wind version of her. But yeah, looking at this run, I got very lucky on a lot of death breaks very early on, and that is the main thing that you need for this. Like in the end, especially I'm doing the mid-risk version. If you have an Uldong, of course you place an Uldong over the Miriam, which is the best option. That makes you a high reward while having mid-risk kind of style. But yeah, as you see, the best is every time that you can send an S2 to send the S2 on a death break. Only thing is that you might get into a rotation where you needed the S2, where you only have like one hit left, and then you don't have the S2. So it's a little bit tricky, but the S2 in the end does do a insane much more damage. And you kind of have to look at the bars of the other units, because if I send the S2 right now, and these other units move very fast and very soon after, I might mess myself up. Like if there's 2 other units moving, I get the death break in right now, which is definitely needed. I have 1 other unit moving right now. In this case, I actually contemplated to go for the S2 because of an attack break, because that way I can still survive a little bit more on the HP. Did actually manage to do that, did actually land that, but also I did get my turn off right there. If that was the case where I couldn't kill on an S1, for example, and then the other 2 would have moved, I would have had big issues. But in this case, no issues whatsoever, and the rotation actually worked out perfectly fine, which just needs a bit of RNG for the rotation to work out or rotation not to work out. So 14 turns left, we're already looking at 11 mil. So this is where you need a lot of death break. So miss the death break on that first hit over there. Other unit moves, death break back at it again, sending out the S2. This is also the position that a double S1 won't make me kill. If I had an Uldong, double S1 on an early death break would have worked. I also did miss a death break over there on the second hit. I do have max accuracy on this Draken Warrior because of the artifact. You just need 35. So 7 turns left on 12. Got a death break on that second hit over there. So not on the first, but the second. But still good damage. And in this case, I was like, yo, I'll just send it. I'll just YOLO it. I'll go for the S2. And then let's see, I'm already at 13 mil, 3 turns left. So this is also where you can see like towards level 50, 51, how much just 3 turns does in damage. I got Death Break on the very first hit, which is very beneficial. And then we could finish off with an S2. So that gave me right there a whole bit of good RNG for a 14.1. Was it the perfect RNG out there? No, I missed a few death breaks early on. My Galleon was a shithead. My Team 2 actually did do pretty fine. My Team 2, I had nothing to complain about. So I could say that with the teams and the runes that he did on a perfect RNG scenario, I could probably do 15 to 15.5, I would say. But then again, that is pretty much the limit for my teams without the LDs or without putting a Deborah in there. Because if I put a Deborah in here, I start doing way more damage, but then it's also way higher on the risk, because if I miss any death breaks, it's immediately like a fail kind of scenario. Whereas she can actually provide shields. I had that in the run before. Wait, no, that's not the run that's recorded over here, but in the run before, like if she gets a shield, you get 1 hit from this thing. It is definitely not that bad still. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. So I still have 2 entries left, plus all of the entries that we will get later. This was actually good enough for Legend for last rotation. As you can see over here, last rotation, or what, last Draken Warrior rotation, let's call it that way. Did do a 13.7, but at that rotation, people were more figuring out what to do, how to do it, and that kind of stuff. In this case, it was just easier. I will save all of my entries until the last day and then see if I have to overtake someone at that point. But I do think that I'm good for top 10, and top 10 is mainly what I aim for in this case. So I was rank 16 on this one, rank 2 on this one. Okay, so going over all of the runes, all of the artifacts, pause at any given moment where you do want to pause. I'll just like semi-quickly go over all of those. It's just a shit ton of damage that you have to do on everything. It's also like how much damage on fire artifacts do you have? Like that's the main rotating thing for every element. How much damage on fire do you have for all of these units right there? How good is your Draken Warrior and that kind of stuff? So I'll zoom in into the Draken Warrior for a bit because in the end that is the main damage dealer out there. But yeah, for this kind of sake, it's just trying to do as much damage as possible. I think in a lot of cases, crit damage first is better on all of these damage dealers outside of the twins. Of course, twins you go co-op damage. But also attack increasing effect is really good because a team with a Hwahi will have a permanent uptime of attack buff. So therefore attack increasing effect in combination with some crit damages first is probably the way to go. So those are all of these. And then we have the final one, which is the Draken Warrior, which was looking like this. I had a little bit more HP, but that's definitely not an issue too much, I have noticed. This was my left side, which is pretty good for fire, life drain, and then also still having an attack increasing effect. Right side was also pretty good for life drain, fixing a bit of accuracy, so therefore I'm 37 accuracy on the S1, which is the important part. And then also adding a little bit more on these kind of things. I do really recommend to go for a bit of life drain out there. It just makes your run so much less likely to get full RNG'd if you, or that you get cut by your other units, because that's the main issue. If your Draken Warrior moves and then 3 other units move and you only had 1 turn on the Draken Warrior in a team of 4, or in like a turn bar of 4, whatever you want to call it, you just die. Like that's just the main thing to it. And then the other units, as mentioned, always like triple fight, Mirene moving after, Hongyong moving in front. You don't want to have both of them moving in front because that's just, that's going to be bad. And from here, you can see the individual teams. So as mentioned, I can do like about 100k extra on this. Therefore, this team would do 100k-ish extra as well. And this one, I could probably do like 500 to 1 mil extra if it goes like perfect RNG. But I already had really good RNG. So let's look at the individual units and how much damage they did between one another. So this is the second team. You do see that Jean has by far best damage. But then again, Gojo still has pretty substantial damage. Hwahi in the end has a bit of damage where it's just only the S3. And Shina and Sabrina, they are the Death Breakers. But that's what I say is like, they are just the Death Breakers, but in the end, they still have a good bit of chip damage out there. So it's not just fully on one target doing a shit ton of damage. Therefore, I like to go for a Rage or Fatal plus a Fight on these units to just still add in a little bit of damage. Team 1 is mainly Lucas, and, well, I would say just Lucas. Mina is still decent. I'm not sure how a Jack compares to a Lucas, if because Jack has a self-attack buff as well, therefore you don't need a Galleon. That makes your life a lot easier. Like, if you had a, what's it called? Well, yeah, then you just have to go for a different Death Breaker. You cannot go for Prillia out there, but you could go for, like, a Water Prillia or any kind of other Death Breaker with a multi-hit, or maybe a Death Breaker that also provides more branding like a Jara, but it is pretty risky to make that work. But then again, Galleon itself is kind of risky itself as well. But yeah, curious to see if a Lucas would be, or like if a Jack would be on par with the damage of a Lucas, or it's more like the damage of a Mina. But main issue why Mina's doing less damage, while I was actually praising that much Mina was lacking attack buff, because you have 2 turns on attack buff, 2 turns off attack buff because of Galleon being a 4-turn skill 3 user. So for that reason, it is actually pretty close if a Mina would have had attack buff every turn. Sure, you could maybe fix that in here, but then your Lucas attack buff is kind of redundant, so it is best to put a Jack in here. That's the main thing. And then this team, well, that's kind of obvious. I don't really have to say much more, it's just the Daragon, that's all. If you don't have the Draken Warrior, probably have to go towards some survivability team with like a nuker. I've seen people do that with like a Covenant. I've seen people do that with Daphneses. I've seen people do that with all kinds of ignored defenses, and then just providing shields with like the homunculus, and you could still go for Shizuka, but it's more along the lines of like going Jade and homunculus and the light hammer girl and then 2 nukers, something along those lines is what I see people use. And then a Daphnes plus an ignored defense unit, or maybe even a Bilger or something. Bunch of options that you could go for that, but then again, Draken Warrior is by far better. I can also see the teams of my previous rotation, so Funny enough, my Lucas team on the team 1 with the Momo was doing pretty much as much damage. I did use a Hwahi in that time around. So it was 175. I currently did a 176. This one was actually a little bit lower, but this one, maybe I should have used a Mina in here as well. No, wait, technically I could have used the whole team that I'm currently using in this team as well. So I could have had rank 1 in the water rotation because all of the units that I used just now in fire, I could have actually used in water as well. Outside of course, missing 15 crit rate and a little bit of the damage extra in there. Last time around, I did this team with a Seek, and Seek in the end is a little bit weaker than a Hwahi. Hwahi adds a little bit more chip damage than a Seek, so I would say in most cases, Hwahi will outclass Seek, but Seek is definitely still pretty good. But I did like a 3 mil over there, whereas on my current team, I did like 3.1 mil. And then my Draken Warrior team on that one, I went for the lower risk version. Well, it's actually a little bit of a mixture of things because I still have the Deborah in there. Well, actually, if you have her in there, you can definitely go for Deborah because Deborah will actually make it, or like she will make it that you get a lot of death breaks and then you amplify those death breaks by this. But still, the run was just a 6.5 mil. If you want to go even lower risk kind of style, you add her plus the Miriam or her plus the Mirene. And that is even lower risk, and you would definitely get your G3 with that, but you're not going to get a top 10, you're not going to get a legend with that. But if you just care about getting G3, I would put her next to a Miriam, and that's your easiest way of just clapping in, like, let's say 5 to 10-ish mil, and then just call it a day. So yeah, that's all for this rotation. Let's see if this 14 mil holds. Last rotation, I got rank 2. Someone overtook me like 300k after I made the last video. Let's see how it works. I think I'll just do one video per rotation from now on out because it's just kind of same teams with like a little bit min-maxing here and there. But I'll try to do as today to make a team on the first or second day of the rotation just to help you guys out. Well, guys, thanks a lot for watching. See you as always in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.